On this episode of Healthier Workplaces, we'll talk about overcoming leadership challenges in industrial hygiene and occupational environmental health and safety.
Way back when I started my career, I said, I'm going to be president of AIHA someday. And it was kind of funny because I'd really moved away from that for a while and then came back into volunteering for AIHA.
At some point decided that I would like to serve in a leadership role for AIHA. And I was elected treasurer-elect and went through that 3-year term of service as treasurer-elect and treasurer, and then was elected as vice president.
Is it worth the time to invest your available free time? Not that you have a lot, probably, but into pursuing a position on a leadership position on an organization like AIHA? Is that something that you would encourage others to do? Welcome to the Healthier Workplaces Show, a program dedicated to highlighting the efforts of industry professionals who protect our workers and their communities from occupational and environmental hazards. I'm Bob Krell, founder and publisher of Healthy Indoors magazine, and your host for this new program from AIHA. This week's guests are Dina Siegel and Nicole Greeson. Both are certified industrial hygienists. Dina serves as an industrial hygiene and safety professional at Los Alamos National Laboratory and is AIHA's president-elect. Nicole is AIHA's vice president and serves as the associate director for Duke University's Occupational and Environmental Safety Office. When we come back, we'll sit down with Dina Siegel and Nicole Greeson to discuss some of the leadership challenges in each of their careers. Stay with us.
The newly updated 6th edition of the Noise Manual is available at the AIHA University bookstore. This edition contains new chapters on impulse noise, ototoxicants, fit testing, and community exposure. Noise is an omnipresent hazard for industrial hygienists and OEHS practitioners. Find the right information with this valuable resource for noise prevention and more in your workplace and communities. Update your noise knowledge today. Available in print and digital formats. Visit aiha.org/noise for a free preview.
Both of you have gotten into leadership roles in the AIHA organization. How did you get there? Like, was that a pre-planned exodus? You're going to, I'm going to be in leadership. I'm going to go up through the ranks. Or is it just something that just organically happened for each of you? And I'll reach out to Nicole on this first.
I would say it wasn't necessarily pre-planned. I had previously been on the American Board of Industrial Hygiene, on that board of directors, and I had served as chair while I was on that board. And at that point, I worked closely with the leadership of the AIHA board and staff, and that of ACGIH as well. So I had some exposure to folks who were in the positions that I have then held at AIHA. So at some point decided that I would like to serve in a leadership role for AIHA. And I was elected treasurer-elect and went through that 3-year term of service as treasurer-elect and treasurer, and then was elected as vice president. So this is a 4-year term, same as Dina's 1 year ahead of me in it.
So Dina, I'll pose the same question to you. How did you come to be where you are as president-elect of AIHA?
Well, same as Nicole in a lot of ways. I actually, way back when I started my career, I said, I'm going to be president of AIHA someday. And it was kind of funny because I'd really moved away from that for a while and then came back into volunteering for AIHA in many ways and was nominated to get on the board about 10 years ago by an individual that was president of AIHA. So I said, oh, yeah, I can do this. So I started out with being a director at large. And then after those 3 years were done, I became secretary of the AIHA board. And after that, moved quite happily into the president approach, which is a 4-year. So it's really funny that I thought of myself in my 20s as being AIHA president someday, and I actually made it. So it's pretty cool.
So, I mean, and I think that is really, it's noteworthy that both of you, spend that much time doing volunteer work. Because I mean, it's a volunteer position; you're not paid, and I'm sure that the commitment is quite a bit. Just knowing all the stuff going on at AIHA, I can't imagine that you're not real busy with this in addition to both of your careers. So, I mean, the topic of today's program is overcoming leadership challenges, and I'm assuming that both of you have not had, a perfectly smooth sail to where you are. I mean, life isn't that easy, and certainly coming up, in the ranks of a national/international organization, not an easy path. So I guess let's talk about some of the things that you may have faced. Nicole, is there anything that's noteworthy that jumps out at you as far as one of the big challenges you
Well,
ever
I would
faced?
say you're right. It is a big time commitment, and I think it would be incredibly difficult to do it if I didn't have my employer's support, because sometimes things like this happen that go on in the middle of the day when I'm normally working, and I have to, block the time on my calendar for it. And certainly lots of things, board meetings on weekends, travel, et cetera. So it's helpful to have an employer that's supportive of this time investment, but I think that they see the value in the leadership skills it helps me to develop better, since I am also a leader at my day job, if you will. So I think that having that support has been helpful. But if I had not had it, it would have been a huge barrier to being in this position.
Yeah, it does seem like you have to have the support of your employer when you're doing this, because you are taking, hours out of your weekly work week, so they have to be on board with that. So, Dina, some of the things that you maybe have encountered coming up through doing this.
Uh, so definitely having employer support is critical to this. And I have been very fortunate to have my management understand and support my time that I take with AIHA. And I think the other thing that I would say is really important is, once you start to be in a board level position or even as a volunteer, you have to learn first to listen and learn, and then understand the passion it takes to advancing, just even if it's a small thing within AIHA, advancing that idea, getting that information out to our members. And for me, just as I started out when I was a director, I just really had to learn and listen. How do boards work? What do we need to do for our membership? How do I lead? How do I not micromanage? How do I encourage and evoke passion in other people? For me, that was really a real eye opener for me, because it's about leading people. It's about having people understand and get excited about something that you're working with them on. It's totally different from managing in the classic sense of the word. You really are trying to get people to love it, go along with you, insert their passion, insert their ideas on how we can make AIHA even better than it is.
So you had mentioned, Dina, that you've been on the board for 10 years, approximately 10 years.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I had to count up. 3 years as a director, 3 years as secretary, and now I'm in the middle of year 2 of the 4-year president. So that's 3, 6. So it's 8. It'll be 10 when I'm done.
So, Nicole, how many years has your path been here?
This is my fourth, because I did 3 as the treasurer-elect and treasurer cycle, and then this is my first year of the 4-year president cycle. So 4.
So, traditionally, science professions, health and safety, a lot of these areas have been very male dominated. And I mean, I'm not that's changed, and it's changing a lot. You're starting to see a lot more diversity in these career fields. But going back 10 years or 10 plus years, not necessarily the case, right? So, did that, being women in this career path, was that challenging? Was it beneficial, or was it just a neutral thing for you? Just Yeah,
Yeah,
nobody wants to jump on that one.
I'll jump in because I'll tell you, I've been around a little longer than Nicole. I know that, but I can tell you when I started out in this profession, I was the first for many of the positions that I did hold. So first CIH for a consulting company, first industrial hygienist when I worked for the Department of Army, and I did notice that it was a little bit of a novelty for some folks. But I can tell you, by the time I got to the board, and in my last 10 or 20 years of my career, uh, it is not unusual at all. And I will look at myself or Nicole or anybody else who's a professional, and I see a professional first, and then maybe I'll see gender second. So that's the way I always look at it. And I'm just really pleased that it's not a novelty anymore.
Yeah, I'll
Nicole?
add, I think there's certainly been a number of women leaders at AIHA. I actually asked the staff recently what percent of the membership identifies as female, and it's about 30%, and that's about the same as it was, I think, 20 or 30 years ago. So in some respects, I think you don't see that many more women entering this profession than when I started, or even before I started. But we certainly have seen an increase, at least during my career, of the number of women in leadership positions. And I think that hopefully will help to show other women that this is a viable career field for them. If they see their leaders looking like them, then maybe they will be more likely to come into this career field and realize it's one that they can thrive in.
So, and you have two different paths. Dina, you've been in the public sector, dealing with government entities, and Nicole, you're private sector, university, academia. Um, Two totally different career paths, two totally different sectors. But why don't we get into some of the specific challenges that that may have come up over the course of your careers? And I'll throw this at Dina first. Just again, is there stuff that may be specific to dealing with government entities, perhaps?
So we do have a lot of what some people have called administrivia, and I'm sure Nicole has some of that at the university level. But for me, one of the challenges has been knowing the difference between leading and managing, and then taking my experience into account, but allowing other peers, allow people that you are working with to make those decisions and pursue their own successes on their own approach. It just makes so much sense to show somebody a vision, see if they want to refine it, see if they want to expand it. It's all, for me, it's about encouragement, it's motivating, it's having passion, it's having empathy, and having people want to follow your lead rather than having to follow your lead because of an organization structure. So that's always been the way I've been, and I've been in management, I've been in senior management, and I have been an individual contributor. And both of those things, especially in the public sector, understanding that not only do we have our management to report to, but understanding that there's a government entity as well that we report to as our customer. So it's pretty good. I will say that since I've worked for Department of Energy and Department of Army, it is a blessing and a treat to work with people that still, even though they are federal employees, understand and work together to make our workers as safe and healthy as they can be. That's really cool. We have a lot of our customers in DOE that are active in AIHA as well as us. So it can be a little bit of a monstrous administrative burden sometimes with some of the things we have, but in the end, we're all the same in terms of wanting to have health and safety for our workers.
So Nicole, is it a different atmosphere working at a university?
In some ways, yes, but it's a large employer. So we have about 47,000 employees at Duke University, including the health system. And I think, like Dina was saying, any large employer, whether it's public sector or private sector, is going to have some administrative or bureaucratic things that maybe wouldn't exist at smaller employers. There's some differences in a university because, of course, there's academic freedom. So a lot of principal investigators run their own research labs and have a lot of freedom to do different things. But one of the core values at Duke is safety. And so it really does come from the top down, regardless of how, whether it's on the university side or the health system side, and whether it is somebody who is a research assistant or a nurse or a doctor or a principal investigator, all levels of the organization, safety is considered a value. It's one of our 5. So I think that helps to make it in some ways easier to do my job, because it's one of the things that's considered in people's performance evaluations as to whether they're doing it or not.
So, I mean, from a culture standpoint, your organization is very health and safety oriented. Dana expressed that same thing. So I would imagine that being in that environment is going to make it a lot easier to do your job effectively, as opposed to being in a situation where maybe there wasn't buy-in from the top on health and safety and you were kind of on a side.
I think we both have that. And I would also say we are a national laboratory. So we are a laboratory with PIs, with researchers, and part of being a leader in my mind is working with your customers. They're my customer from a health and safety standpoint, but it's not throwing some requirement over the fence to them. It's really working with them, using their expertise and coming up with a health and safety program that can be implemented, that everybody agrees with and understands. So having those researchers, at least on my side of the fence right now, working with me and understanding what needs to be done to keep us safe and healthy has been great. And then I'm not somebody just saying you must do this. It's a collaborative approach with the folks that work at Los Alamos National Laboratory. So I'm really pleased that that's the way that it has come out.
We'll be back after this.
In today's shifting work environment, it can be tough to schedule in a half or full day professional development course, or PDC, not to mention the time needed to travel to and from the classroom. AIHA University is excited to offer new virtual options for some of our more popular courses that are essential to your growth as an OEHS professional. The benefits of a virtual PDC are many. Consider: no travel is required. Learning can come directly to you at your home or office. Industry experts deliver live demonstrations via up-to-date video conference technology, a full audio and video experience. You'll experience the same group activities, practice exercises, and breakout sessions as you would in person. Miss something or want to review a particular point? Full access to the course recording is provided post-event. Virtual PDCs are eligible for 3.5 to 7 contact hours towards your certification maintenance. Your budget will thank you. No need to worry about travel or accommodation expenses. You only need the time and space to focus. AIHA's virtual PDCs are happening soon. Select your course today at bit.ly/fallpdcs. We'll see you online soon.
Okay, let me just switch things around here. So both of you obviously are in leadership roles in your career positions, in your professional jobs. But certainly, with your volunteer work with AIHA, you're both on the leadership path, to be, I guess, the next two presidents, right, of the organization. So, I mean, that's certainly that's a heck of a responsibility on your shoulders, right? Both of you are going to be feeling the weight of that fairly soon. Um, what recommendations would you give to other young professionals coming up in the industry? Is it worth the time to invest your available free time? Not that you have a lot, probably, but into pursuing a position on a leadership position in an organization like AIHA. Is that something that you would encourage others to do as they come up through?
Absolutely. I would encourage others to do it. I think you get out of it what you put into it. So I think it's beneficial. Yes, I want to give back to the profession and to the association and its members, but I also think that I get out of it a lot as well. I mean, it's fulfilling for me. I'm very passionate about this profession. And I do think that it helps me improve my leadership skills that are useful in my day job as a leader and manager at Duke.
So for me, the possibility and the opportunity to work with all folks that are in industrial hygiene and safety is so important, and I would encourage people, and you don't have to start high. You can do really simple things like just little opportunities to contribute back to AIHA. You can be on a volunteer group. You can be on one of our task force. There's a lot of ways to micro volunteer, and it's really good because then we'll get a lot of different viewpoints on it. Yes, it is definitely giving back to the profession, but for me, it's all about continuing to improve the profession, allowing others to get involved, others to give their own leadership passions, ideals, and all of those things that kind of go into making AIHA the great organization that it is. It's a well-run organization. I love being a part of it. I love having all the help and assistance that we have out there from everybody. So staff, volunteers, etc. It's just a really cool thing to be a part of, especially now at this point.
So with both of you, so leadership, I'm assuming, has formed a pretty big part of your development as your professional careers, right? Being involved, volunteering in organizations like AIHA, this has helped you develop as professionals in your paid job, right?
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes. And what's wonderful for me is having all these different opinions. So having private sector, public sector, looking at folks that do something totally different than me, may have a different idea of how to implement, say, a confined space program or a hearing conservation program. That difference of approach and maybe different experiences helps other people make their program even better. So being able to benchmark with other folks, just seeing what's out there that might be different from your your approach is just so incredibly valuable. So I've done it within AIHA, I've done it within the DOE, and in other areas, but just really having that difference is so key to having a really good program yourself.
I
So-
agree. Yeah. The networking opportunities are great. I've been an active member of AIHA volunteer groups essentially my entire career. And it's so helpful. Even if you don't have an interest in being a leader of a volunteer group, even just being an active member is really helpful for professional development, because let's say you want to learn more about respiratory protection and you join that volunteer group, Respiratory Protection Committee. You can learn so much about that topic area by being a member of the group and getting involved in helping with a particular project of interest. You meet other people who may be more experienced than yourself in that area, and you can learn so much from them. And then you have somebody you can contact if you have specific questions, and like Dina said, help your employer's program improve by the things that you get, the information that you're able to glean from the volunteer group efforts.
Right.
Well, and I mentioned earlier too, I assume that it's not always smooth sailing when you're in these leadership roles, both in your professional workplace as well as with an organization like AIHA. So I'd love to hear both of your formulas for how you deal with situations that maybe are somewhat stressful or some challenges, in these leadership roles, and how do you collaboratively bring a solution and move the ball forward. Who wants to jump on that one?
Yeah, certainly nothing is always smooth sailing, and I think if there's a decision that is made that is unpopular with, it could even be just a small percentage of the membership, the board is going to hear about it. And I think the key is open communications. We always want to be honest and transparent with everyone on how we came to a decision, to the decision that we did. So what was the data that was presented to us, how we came to that decision. And we're always trying to think of what's in the best interest of the organization and its members. And then if explaining how we came to that is not sufficient, I think having open communication with those people or the groups, if it's particular volunteer groups, to ensure we find common ground and figure out what is it that we did not meet of their needs or wants, and what could we potentially do to improve the situation so that we could have a win-win where everybody, I mean, you can't make everybody happy 100%
Sure.
of the time, but what can we do in order to make sure that they know that their concerns were heard and were considered in the process?
Right.
And Dina, you're going to be in the hot seat pretty soon, in the president's role. So
Yeah. So the way I handle this is I know there's going to be different perspectives. I expect, especially if something is controversial and we know it is, that there's going to be conflict. And I'm ready to manage that conflict. And it's a lot of what Nicole just said, but it's also being very open, very honest, and remembering to practice that active listening. So I think I'm better at that than I was before, but you really have to hear and listen and practice that active listening. Even when the news isn't good or you're dealing with a personal issue that might really become a very serious issue for an individual and for myself. So it's really being prepared to handle those perspectives, being prepared to handle and manage conflict, and open and honest at all times, and active listening at all times. I really think that's really important for us to continue to do this. And nobody likes conflict. I really don't know anybody who does. But if you know that you're going to manage it and you're going to listen and you'll get to a point where everybody at least agrees on a path forward, I think that's success.
There you go. Pass it.
Okay. I would say for people who are considering leadership positions, that they absolutely should go for it. And they could certainly start with something smaller, like in their local section or in a volunteer group, perhaps becoming secretary and going through the typically 4-year process of secretary, vice chair, chair, and past chair. Or if you don't even want to commit to that much time, there's other roles, like we have the research and development officer position in volunteer groups that doesn't really have a set minimum amount of time that you have to serve in. So people can get their feet wet in lots of different ways. And I would encourage people, find an area in which you really are interested and passionate, and look for ways to take on additional leadership responsibilities in that, and then build from there.
Excellent. All right, Dina.
Sure. So you can lead in a lot of ways, and it doesn't necessarily have to have a title associated with it, but think about practicing leading skills in just a task group that you might be with at your company, or you're working on a volunteer project with other AIHA members. Think about allowing people to make decisions, showing them, if you have a vision, tell them what that is, practice that active listening, do all the things that we talk about in terms of critical thinking, or keeping that communication honest and open, and use whatever life hands you as a potential opportunity to practice and hone your leadership skills in that way. Because if you do that, and you do get a title where you're actually a leader, in title and in the way you approach things, it's a great way to be successful. And if those that crave leadership, want leadership, are most going to be successful when they listen, they give back, they allow others to contribute, they allow others to help with the decision and the path forward. So think about being a leader as not so much telling people what's going to happen and what you're going to do, but how you as a team, or you as a board, or you as a volunteer group, or even you as completing an action, can work together to come up with a path forward and a result that's really going to benefit everybody involved.
So that's our show for this week. We'll be back in November with 2 new programs. Thanks again for watching. Until next time, I'm Bob Krell. Stay healthy.